ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hi, it's Patricia Carvelis here from the Party Room podcast. And as the 2025 election looms, and it looms large, we're joined on the podcast by election king, national treasure, general excellent guy Anthony Green to take a look at what seats are in play. Where should you be looking? What are the states? Where are the electoral distributions that will change the race? Listen to the episode on the ABC Listen app.
It was one of the shortest bans ever. On Saturday night, TikTok blocked its services to American users. But by Sunday afternoon, it was back, thanks to incoming President Donald Trump. Today, Wired reporter Vittoria Elliot on why the TikTok ban failed. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Victoria, TikTok, it's massive around the world. I mean, it is huge, more than 1 billion users, and so many of them are sitting in America, right?
Yes, there's, I think, about 170 million users of TikTok in the US.
So many. And on the weekend, all of those users were, well, cut off.
There's been a wild ride for TikTok users in the last 24 hours. The video sharing platform went offline in the US just hours before a new law banning the platform was due to come into effect because of national security concerns. Now,
and they weren't really happy about it either.
I'm confused. I'm disappointed. It's a beautiful app, and for it to just be taken away like that feels not American.
I'm very upset, sad, angry, many emotions. I have other platforms that I monetize, but nothing monetizes quite like TikTok.
It's interesting if you logged on to TikTok Sunday morning in the US, you got a notification screen, and I'm actually pulling it up right now so I can read it to you, that said initially was going to explain to people that TikTok had been taken offline, but by the time I woke up this morning said, "Thanks for your patience and support. As a result of President Trump's efforts, TikTok is back in the US." So it was offline for a few hours, but now appears to be back running again.
Yeah, it's back again. All right, so we're going to step through in a moment what Donald Trump actually did and the significance of that. But first, let's just talk about why the Biden administration banned it in the first place. Just take me back to that decision that was made last year.
Yeah, so I actually think we need to go back a little further. The first person to actually suggest a ban of TikTok was Donald Trump in 2020.
We're looking at TikTok. We may be banning TikTok. We may be doing some other things. There are a couple of options, but a lot of things are happening. So we'll see what happens. But we are looking at a lot of alternatives with respect to TikTok.
But it didn't happen during his term. But in, the past 2 years, there was sort of increasing concerns, particularly on the part of Congress and the national security establishment, around TikTok because it is owned by the China-based company ByteDance. So under the Trump administration and afterwards, there was concern about whether or not American data would be accessible to the Chinese government, which led to last year, there was a bill that was actually a foreign aid bill. And the TikTok ban was packaged together with that foreign aid bill. And Biden signed that bill, and it gave TikTok until January 19th to either exit the U.S. entirely or find a U.S. buyer for TikTok, the American version of TikTok. And the company said, we're not playing ball with that.
So why didn't it do that? Do we know?
So ByteDance said, we don't feel the need to do this. And I think a really important thing to note is that in China, certain things are considered export controlled, meaning that they don't get to be exported out of the country without government permission. And actually the ByteDance/TikTok algorithm is one of those things. So even if an American had come through and bought TikTok, they wouldn't get it with the secret sauce that makes the app so good, which is the recommendation algorithm. So even if they had decided to sell to some American buyer, that American buyer would basically be left with a shell of a company because the thing that makes the platform good wouldn't be there.
And not to mention, of course, Vittoria, I think the price tag for TikTok is something like it could be up to $50 billion. So you'd need a fair bit of cash if you wanted it, that's for sure.
Well, we saw Elon Musk drop nearly as much on Twitter, so, I would never say that it couldn't have been done.
It is possible. It is possible. All right. Just on a side note, of course, the US went a step further, but many governments around the world, including the Australian government and in Europe, have banned TikTok on government devices. That, of course, is because of that security concern. So the ban came into force, but then Donald Trump indicated he'd be bringing TikTok back. And at a victory rally in Washington, D.C., he said we really need to save it at this point.
But I said we need to save TikTok because we're talking about a tremendous... Who in this audience goes with TikTok? Many? Yeah, very popular. And frankly, we have no choice. We have to save it. A lot of jobs. We don't want to give our business to China.
Well, I think if nothing, Donald Trump is an incredible marketer, and he is certainly an avid consumer of public sentiment. So I think Trump has realized that the TikTok ban is incredibly unpopular. 170 million people using this app is a substantial chunk of people, and it's a really easy win for him at the beginning of his term to sort of take this incredibly unpopular thing that Biden has done and say, I fixed it for you.
And as of today, TikTok is back. We went on TikTok. We won the youth vote by 36 points. So I like TikTok.
And so we don't necessarily know exactly what the plan is now. What we do know right now is that Trump still seems to be interested in finding an American buyer who can take what he is saying, maybe a 50% stake in the company, and, to give some form of American ownership or oversight.
So I said very simply, I'll approve, but let the United States of America own 50% of TikTok. I'm approving on behalf of the United States. I don't know, it sounds like that works. What do you think? Good? Good sound. So whether you like TikTok or not, we're going to make a lot of money.
But it is a law, this ban. It's been passed by Congress. So Donald Trump, once again, he loves these, doesn't he? Needs to use an executive order to wind it back. Just explain that for me a bit more.
So the law does actually include the ability for there to be a time extension for the divestiture, for the replacement of ByteDance as the owner with an American owner. So, there is wiggle room for the president regardless there. And it does look like it will be some form of executive order here, at least in the temporary time frame while the deal is worked out. And, it may get kicked back to Congress. I think a lot of Congress people are realizing exactly how unpopular this is. And even some people who voted for the TikTok ban, their congressional offices have TikToks to communicate with their constituents. So I think they all see value in this, and they've also realized how unpopular it is. So I definitely think we'll see an executive order, and then we may or may not see some sort of revision around the actual law.
But Vittoria, until the executive order is actually signed by Donald Trump, TikTok is operating illegally in the US.
It is. And, again, he's not in office right now. So the Biden administration could have issued an extension, but they didn't. So, they are in this gray area. And so I think, it's very clear that Trump has been in contact with the CEO of TikTok to kind of ensure that the service will continue at least until he takes office.
Yeah, well, the TikTok chief executive, Shusi Chu, he put out a video sort of thanking Donald Trump.
On behalf of everyone at TikTok and all our users across the country, I want to thank President Trump for his commitment to work with us to find a solution that keeps TikTok available in the United States. This is a strong stand for the First Amendment and against arbitrary censorship.
And Victoria, things are really going to change in this space, aren't they, when Donald Trump is back in power as of this week? Tech billionaires, they like him, don't they?
They do seem to have a lot of affinity for him, much more so than they did in 2016. A lot of tech companies, including Meta and X, are changing their platform moderation rules to be more friendly to the kinds of conservative voices that have really bolstered Trump, And I think, what we've seen, especially in the past year and 2 years, led really by Elon Musk, is the sense that, content moderation, policing of hate speech, fact-checking, that you can sort of do away with that and the consequences won't be that great. And so, we saw that first with Elon Musk when he took over Twitter and turned it into X. We've seen Meta roll back its fact-checking program. Similarly, Meta has changed its hate speech and content moderation policies. Tech companies are removing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives from both their external literature as well as internally within their companies. And so we're really seeing these companies remake themselves in alignment with the new political moment, as opposed to trying to be forces for democracy or in somehow in opposition to the new administration.
Donald Trump even asked Elon Musk up on stage during that Washington, D.C. rally.
Come here, Elon. Come on, Elon. Say a couple of words.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
So, Victoria, with this TikTok ban reversed, does it really pose a risk to US security? Is it safe to use it in America, do you think, or elsewhere?
I think that the real issue around TikTok is not a TikTok issue, it's a data privacy issue. We don't have anything like the GDPR in the US, which is Europe's data protection laws, and so that means that I think it would be just as easy for a Chinese spy to buy my data off of a data broker as it would be to look at my TikTok data. Maybe they would find an embarrassing amount of heartwarming dog videos that wouldn't be revealed by my credit card information. But the reality is that if someone wants to find information on you, if someone wants to collect information on you, there's many, many ways to do that. And I think what's really interesting is that when it appeared that TikTok would be offline after this weekend, many, many Americans joined the Chinese app Red Note, or Xiaohongshu, and the sentiment was sort of like, Meta and all these other organizations are already collecting my data anyway, so here, let's give it to the Chinese for free. People sort of saying, like, at least if I'm going to be giving up my data, I'm gonna choose where it's going, and as this sort of protest move. So I don't really think that TikTok is necessarily any more dangerous than any other app.
Vittoria Elliot is a reporter with Wired. And you would have seen that 3 Israeli hostages held in Gaza for more than a year have now been released as part of a ceasefire deal. If you want to hear analysis on how long the ceasefire might hold and what happens next, check out the episode we put out on Friday. Search for ABC News Daily on the ABC Listen app. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed and Anna John. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.